Okay, welcome to Achieving Your Optimal Health webinar. And you can find our entire series by going to LasVegasAreaTrails.com and clicking on the health education link. And here you have amazing. We are near the end of a year of webinars. Each of these links here shows a powerful webinar presentation by a member of our team. And tonight, we are going to have Money as a Reflection of Our Emotions with Annie Emprima-Martin. And you click on any of these links, you go to the blog page for the webinar, and gives you a description of the webinar. And this is for all of our webinars. There's a webinar replay video right under the description. And of course, we won't have the video till after today's webinar. But what we do have um, is just a summary here. When people think about the words health and health practitioner, the first thing that comes to mind is often your physical condition. Going deeper, the thought of mental health and emotional health may come to mind. Perhaps the thought of relationships and social health may arise if we start getting really creative and thinking, okay, what does health involve and what does a health practitioner do? But financial health is seldom in the picture when you're thinking of health and health practitioners. Yet, where financial health is missing, all other forms of health are threatened. And in this webinar, Annie's going to help us explore how to create a healthy relationship with your finances that will support financial health and in turn help support all the other areas of health. And um, she's going to focus on, this webinar, we're going to explore your relationship with money, positive and negative emotions that surface around money, behavioral finance. That's an interesting term that Annie coins in her presentation. What is behavioral finance? It's the behaviors we form around money. She's going to guide us through looking at that. Respect versus disrespect in terms of handling money. Um, Approaches to engaging with money. So a lot of good things to explore. This is really the first webinar that we will have had in the area of financial health. So I've been really looking forward to this, especially this time in our lives where we're all financially uh, challenged and we look toward an uncertain financial future. Um, to get our heads in the right place and our hearts and our spirits is very important moving forward. So benefits of attending this webinar: begin moving toward a healthier and more satisfying relationship with your finances, move away from emotions and behaviors that may be sabotaging your financial success. Wow, that's really possible. Become a positive model for others around the area of creating financial health. So, can you imagine if we could attain these three benefits? That would make life a lot better for ourselves and people around us. So, Annie, you have um, uh, a big um, goal to fulfill here. So I thought I'd set you up and say Annie's going to help us with all of these things tonight. And to give you a little idea, who is Annie? Um, she's a spiritual empowerment facilitator and metaphysical human science and certified spiritual life coach, mom, woman veteran, spiritual empowerment coach, quantum healing, hypnosis technique practitioner, startup investor, which is going to feed into her expertise today, startup investor and service disabled veterans business owner. Annie's trialities are veterans, entrepreneurs, and spiritual empowerment. What a great combination in one person. She coaches spiritually guided startups, business professionals, executives, and other individuals to clear out old rules and blocks, remove trapped emotions, align beliefs with business and work, and intensify natural and spiritual gifts, which are the superpowers. So I won't read the rest of this. You definitely go to her blog page, read the rest of her bio. But the thing I would say about Annie is that she has a she uniquely spans both spiritual and financial, business, and emotional, so many areas, and we need people in our lives that can help us to balance our lives out and tie these things together. So I'm going to go ahead and unshare the screen and turn it over to Annie. So just a second. Annie, take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up mine. I'll try this again. Okay, so this is a part of, for those that have followed me, I'm writing a book. I'm in the process of writing it. It's halfway done. And it's called The View from My Ships. And what I found is from my the past 4 years, I've been learning about different ships in a very annually themed way. So all of 2016, leadership. 2017 was about personal relationships. 2018 was business relationships. And then there was 2019 was ownership, and this year has very much been themed the money ship. And I kind of get the idea of what ship I'm going to be on. Sort of like in the military, I get PCS to this ship. And on January 1st, I declared that I wanted to be debt free, which for many people is not a big deal, but for someone that came back injured from the military, and I was so accustomed to having high income, and I came back from the military, was injured, came back with some invisible wounds as well, and I haven't really worked in the capacity that I worked prior to deploying. So this is going into the 4th year where I am not making nearly as much as I made before I deployed and during my deployment. And the money that I had coming in was just so stable. I was on a very stable ship. So I had to understand what it was like to be on a rocky or financial ship. And because of that, it put me in a position to understand money in a very different way. I grew up very middle class, but I grew up with very, very wealthy uncles and aunts. Wealthy where they had $5 million summer homes and yachts. That was what I experienced secondhand, but not firsthand. My parents didn't have the money that my uncles and aunts did. So I grew up observing gross amounts of wealth, but not living in high wealth. So what I learned through this is that you can have not enough money because you're in a state of insufficiency. And from the place of positive psychology, that would be making less than $75,000 a year. So positive psychology studies have shown that once you're making $75,000, all of your basic needs are met, and there's extra room for like experiences, vacations, and cushions when things go wrong. You're in a state of insufficiency if you make less than that, because there's not a lot of wiggle room with your income. But then what happens is after, whether you have too little or too much, you can have not enough and have more than plenty, because you then become attached to money as something that you idolize and worship. And so I put in this biblical quote because after a certain point, you're no longer doing it from a place of happiness. You're doing it from a place of greed. And that was one sort of the first lesson I had to learn about money is pious poverty is a disrespect to yourself, as is gross wealth without impact. So if someone wants to make $5 billion a year, that's awesome. What are they doing with that money, and are they impacting the world in a great way? So I view it as, if you want to have large amounts of money, that there's also a level of responsibility, sort of in the Peter Parker principle, with great power comes great responsibility, and that we have a responsibility to support our neighbors and help each other. So if we're too much of one, too much of not enough, and too much of too much, that's out of balance. And that's the basis of the talk today. So think about money as a reflection of your emotions. So how do you feel about your income? Do you feel that you make enough money right now? Would you say yes or no? Do you have a high enough net worth? Is there anyone that is fully satisfied with their income or net worth?
That's a better way of putting it.
Comfortably satisfied? Or is there a little dialogue going on that says, hey, could we pinch a little more, or could we step a little more?
Dialogue.
What's that?
Dialogue going on.
How do you feel when you look at your bank account? Are you worried about the future? Are you worried about retirement? Is there an anchor when you look at your bank account to say, okay, I want just a little more? Or are you looking at it saying there's not enough to pay the bills? Or are you looking at it saying, whoa, that's awesome? And do you have judgments? Do you have judgments about people who are billionaires or people who are homeless? Extreme spectrums of financial stability. How do you feel about your living environment? Do you feel like your house is big enough, new enough, nice enough? Are those conversations that you have in your mind? How do you feel about spending money, saving money, or debt? So where we think about that is, and I'll give you an example, because I do this myself, and I grew up in a family where my dad bought 2 homes with cash, always paid cash. He would use credit cards, and we were taught, like, if you're going to use a credit card, you pay at the end of the month. So that was the rule in my head. So what happens when you marry someone who's a shopaholic and you can never catch up on debt? So in my mind, I was in such a financial discomfort that it created anger and resentment in my mind, because my rule was that my dad said, you pay all your bills at the end of the month, and if you don't have it, don't buy it. And yet here I am living in Vegas, trying to keep up with car payments. When I bought my first house, I literally broke out in hives, because it was so far against my belief system that I had an allergic reaction to spending money. How do you feel about buying something indulgent, like $500 pair of shoes, or a very nice handbag, or an expensive vacation? How does your body react to that? And what we don't want to focus on are the words. We want to focus on the feeling that we get with those questions. So here's the first exercise. This is an emotional test. So name one thing, and we can go around. Name one thing that you buy or have bought that brought you an immense amount of joy.
My house.
Your house. Okay. Who else?
I bought like 20 years ago. I bought an electric piano for $500, and I've been using it ever since.
A program that I just spent money on.
Did it bring you joy?
Yeah, because it's about abundance.
Okay.
A tent.
A tent. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Brought me a bunch of joy every time I used it. It was so fun. I bought a hammock before quarantine, or after we started quarantine. It was like the best $100 I've ever spent, and I spent money on a lot of things.
Well, I put a lot of my investment just into my health, and so I figure when maybe I could have put it into a really nice car. I put it into my body. And so I say, here it is. This is it. and I feel really good about that investment.
And what about something that you had to buy that really upset you?
I'll start. CEUs.
Oh, interesting.
What did you say?
CEUs.
Oh,
Continuing education units.
Very interesting. Who would have imagined that? And you don't like that, huh?
Well, not right now when I don't have any money coming in.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I just bought a water heater. I was not at all joyful buying that.
Hmm.
air conditioner.
The air conditioner, I had to do that too, and that wasn't fun. Yeah, definitely does not bring me joy having, well, I mean, the air conditioner brings me joy, but paying the money was not joyful.
I had a computer software program, the program that I used to process our recordings, and Camtasia, and it wasn't working. And so I bought an upgrade for $100 just last week. Thought, I don't right now have that $100 to spend on it. And then after I bought it, I realized, well, maybe it was my computer memory and not the Camtasia. Then I'm thinking,
Yeah. So this quote is about discomfort, and this is the emotion test too. So are you willing to live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else? Are you willing? So, and this is really focused on people who are in debt right now, is are you willing to make sacrifices with your comforts to be able to accumulate money so that that passive income helps you buy the things that you really want without having to work as hard or hard at all later in life? Are you willing to live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else? And where this comes in is there are people who are not willing to make adjustments in their way of living to be able to get themselves out of debt. And there are people who have to have the brand new car. They have to have, and the ego is so attached to how other people see them that they cannot make those sacrifices out of, it's a mental expectation of public humility, or the equivalent of public humility. And for those that are really money driven for retirement or for goals, that drive is stronger than other people's validation. So let's go to 3. So this is an exercise about money. Think about using a credit card to buy something, and it can be whatever it is. Keep it consistent between the 2 questions. When you buy something with a credit card, how do you feel versus paying with something with cash, paper bills? So imagine whatever it is. So if it's a house, a car, a book, you're either paying with credit card or you're paying with money, cash. What's the difference in your feeling?
I'd rather pay more with cash than credit.
Why?
Because credit can get you in trouble. You got the interest rates, and so no matter what you paid for, you're paying interest on it if you're not paying it off right away. And people look at credit like it's here's my card, whatever, and it's just going to mess you up in the long run. For some, not all, but for some.
Think about the energy behind it. If I put a credit card into a terminal and I take the credit card out, what exchange have I had with the other person and with my money?
Well, it's distant, really. There's no direct exchange.
So if you're going to manifest money, what we really need to be doing is manifesting the flow of money. So if I'm manifesting the flow of money, money wants to play, money wants to move. So paying with cash, I pay with cash, I might get coins back, the person's participating in this, I'm participating in this, the money's participating, and there's an exchange. There's an energy exchange, whereas a credit card does not have energy exchange. We don't have an emotional tie to a terminal.
Plus, you can take that change and throw it in a jar and save it and let it add up.
Yeah.
And I would say that credit cards sometimes, as you're buying something, there's an amount of fear that you're, as you're paying for it, especially if your credit card is just going up and not going down.
And what does fear do for manifesting? It manifests more fear.
Shuts it off.
Right? Versus if we're manifesting the flow of energy, we will achieve the flow of energy with the money by playing with it, letting people play back. So let's look at test 4, perceptions. How do you feel shopping at a thrift store? Does it bother you? My ex-husband will not step foot in a thrift store. Will not step foot in a thrift store because in his mind, he would be demoting himself financially. And he would be glad to shop at a high-end retailer where I would be the opposite.
Yeah.
How do you feel shopping at Walmart versus Target?
I love shopping at thrift stores.
Me too.
But there's a
It can
difference.
feel-
I think it's what you're
attachment to
looking
thrift
for.
stores.
I think it's what you're looking for as far as Walmart and Target. It's because I've shopped at both, but it depends on what item I was looking for specifically that I felt would give me the better deal. And thrift
And
stores, my girlfriend
sometimes
takes me
there's-
to them all the time.
There can be a feeling of failure if you're shopping at a thrift store. I kind of failed. I shouldn't be here. I should, if I had been successful, I would be at Macy's or I would be at some high-end retailer. But here I am at a thrift store or here I am at Walmart. I must have failed somehow or I wouldn't be here. And so there, to be honest, there are those feelings. And of course, I've got to work through in my thinking, now, why am I feeling this way? And is that really legitimate? But I'm having that dialogue and then kind of working myself out of that. But in the very beginning, it's not like those feelings aren't there. So
That's a great point, David. That's exactly the dialogue that happens. Is a rule was created, and therefore I cannot do this because it equals this. And think about IKEA. What's the experience between IKEA and 7-Eleven?
I love IKEA.
Why?
Just the
Where your
energy
dreams come
and-
true.
Where you can feel like you're in 500 Days of Summer. No, I'm just kidding. But it's very open and inviting.
How long do you spend in 7-Eleven versus IKEA?
Spent a lot of time at IKEA. One time I spent 2 hours.
2 hours, that's it.
That's it.
It's an event.
I mean, I have a studio, so I don't have as much to buy.
Okay. Makes sense.
versus 7-Eleven where it's not Disneyland, right? You go in, you get what you want, you get out. No energy, very little energy, where IKEA is an experience.
Mhm.
So let's look at behavioral finance. Behavior and money are so intertwined that there is a name for it. And I didn't coin this. This is an actual term that existed long before me. So what is your relationship with money? For those that know me know that I talk a lot about how emotions are energy. Emotions have a vibrational frequency that we can measure, and energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can be changed, and we can change our emotions based on that. Well, there's an energy with money. So we can disrespect money in multiple ways. High credit card debt is that slave-master relationship. You have now become indebted to something else, somebody else. Buying wants before needs. So very often what we find, how many people do you know that can't pay their electric bill, but they have acrylic nails and an iPhone and a Coach purse, right? Where are the priorities? Is it in the self, or is it in the image being compared? The comparisons versus personal needs. Gambling, and really anything that is dopamine driven. How many times, like if you spend $1,000 at a casino and you can afford to spend $1,000, that's an event, that's an experience. If you spend $1,000 at a casino and you don't have enough money to pay your bills, that is a huge disrespect on money, which comes with its own emotional frequency of shame and guilt.
Mhm.
Hoarding and spending. So if you are buying, and there's no need for the stuff that we own, we have now accumulated out of fear, or if we're spending our money, spending to buy things. Those the spending binges that people go on when they're emotionally distraught and they go shop retail therapy. That's a form of disrespecting money. You're using a tool and it's becoming a weapon against you. Stagnation, hiding things under the mattress, not letting the money move, not letting money grow, is the same as putting a 12-foot fish in a 15-inch tank, right? You've now halted the growth of everything, and to the point where it will die. So your net worth will die by being stagnant. And then blocking. So you can block people from making money. You can block yourself from making money. You can release the blocks on money. And it's what intention we put behind our money. Are we using it to manipulate other people? So an example would be back when my parents were getting divorced long ago. My grandfather dangled a brand new car in front of me and said, if you come live with your dad and you leave your mother, we'll buy you a brand new car. That's using money as a weapon to manipulate. Hiding money from spouses. There are people that I know that are like, oh, I don't want to tell my husband, but I got some cash and I bought this thing and I'm not going to tell him that I have it. Well, now we have disrespect, and money is being used to manage that disrespect, and greed and pious poverty. So we were never intended to be dirt poor, none of us. We were never intended to be in such an opposite spectrum of insufficiency that we don't feel like we have enough when we have more than enough, right? If we have $10 million and we're only focused and idolizing the $10 million to turn it into 14 million without understanding or being grateful for that, we've missed the point of money. So when we look at respecting money, money wants to be in motion. Money wants an intention. Money wants to have, if our needs and our wants are met, money wants to play. We want to see the growth in our portfolio. We want to have experiences and vacations. And we know experiences and vacations are one of the things that people who have money and people who don't have money, there's no competition. So if I go on a vacation and I spend $200 and I'm really excited about that, comparison to someone who spends $20,000 on their vacation, our experiences can be equal. So money is not a factor in the degree of our joyful experience on our vacation. So someone can spend $200 going camping if they love camping, and someone can spend $20,000, I don't even know what that looks like, going around Europe for 3 months. I don't know. And we can use it as a tool. We can use it to help the things that we care about. So in a religious sense, it would be tithing. If there's an abundance, philanthropy, advocacy for a cause, things that we care about, we can use money to make a difference in the world. So one of the women that I've coached was so like locked into this pious poverty of fear of success, because that meant there'd be an accumulation of money. I said, well, when you have more money, you can help more people. So in her mind, making a lot of money was wasteful because there were so many people that needed money. But it was never a connection that if you make more money, you can give more money. You can have a greater impact in the world by having a greater accumulation and allowing that money to do its job, whatever intention that may be. So how do we engage with money? Money needs an intention. It wants an intention. Plants like intentions. Crystals like intentions. When we pray out with a request. When we meditate, we receive in. So why wouldn't money want an intention? Why wouldn't it want to be tasked with a mission? It wants to play. Money loves playing. How can you play with your money? What can you do with your money? How do you move your money? How does your money grow? How are you feeding your money so that your money grows? It's going to be based on your values. So some of us have no intention of being a millionaire, and other people, that's part of our goal, is to become millionaires, multimillionaires. Not everyone wants a brand new car. Some people want a brand new car. Not everyone is happy living in a 10,000 square foot mansion, but some people are really happy living in a 10,000 square foot mansion. So it's going to be where you really, truly want to be. And it's without the ego. So the ego might say, I want to compete against the Joneses, and I want the better grass. I want the bigger house, the bigger dog, the bigger car. I want the more and more and more. Well, that's coming from a place of insufficiency, is I don't have enough to compete with my neighbor. That's not a true core value. That's ego coming from a place of insecurity or insufficiency or whatever that may be. So where do we really want to be? If a 10,000 square foot house really brings you joy at the core level from the heart space, then that's important. But if that 10,000 square foot house is to make somebody else feel bad, that's the wrong reason to want the more. So follow the happiness, follow the joy, what really brings joy, and that's where the money is going to grow the fastest. So that is the end of the presentation for money as a reflection of our emotions. And if anyone wants to follow, please follow on Facebook or Instagram. Any events I have are on my website too. So I'll stop sharing. Anyone have any questions?
Yes, I do. That was pretty good, Annie. I missed one of your slides where towards the end where you were talking about the purpose of money. Yeah, I think it was after money needs an intention. Would you be able to throw that back up?
Yeah. The values?
Before this, I think.
Yeah, like plants need an intention, crystals need an intention. Remember that slide? There you go. Is that it?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I found from manifesting, and I can't say that I've been practicing this for a long time, but I can say that I have been struggling because I came out of the military so angry. I came back from deployment to find a large sum of debt on my credit cards that had been accumulated while I was gone. And when in the divorce, I acquired half of that, which then meant that I acquired a whole lot of resentment and anger that I didn't get to spend it. I didn't get to play with it. And yet I was responsible for it. And I spent a large number of years struggling to catch up financially. So I had all this anger and all this resentment and all this built up, pent up energy revolving around money when I came out of my deployment. So it's taken me, over 3 years to process that. But when I declared on January 1st that I wanted to be debt free, I had no idea. I mean, maybe at subconscious level, I knew Corona was coming, but I had no idea what was about to happen.
So it's your fault we have a pandemic, huh?
Right. So I am now in a place where I am very financially happy, even though I'm not quite at the $75,000 level yet. Like I'm still recovering a little bit, but I have come such a long way from just January 1st, understanding these methods. And
I have a question in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Were you finished?
Go.
Okay. So are these like habits for people, or are these like emotions that are like buried so far down that clients would work with you to sort of release the emotional attachment to like the behaviors, or how does the process work of getting rid of some of these negative feelings?
Thoughts matter, words matter, and our connections to money will matter. So in the coaching, it's how are we talking about money? How are we feeling about money? What's our internal dialogue about money? And how are we connecting money to our world? And what I realized is in my mind, I was like chasing for the brand new house. I came from a brand new house, left in my divorce, left a brand new house. And I wanted that back. And I realized that those weren't really the things that brought me joy. Philanthropy brought me joy. So when I readjusted why I wanted more money, then more money started coming faster. And that's what I teach my clients in coaching now is let's look at the why, and we're going to work around the why. What can money do for you? And are we really chasing the greatest level of joy with it?
Yeah, and to Annie's point, one of the things that our massage instructor talked to us about was the intention of the stroke. Right? What is in your mind when you're working on the client is important because that gets through to them. And I find that applies to everything. What is the intention of the time that you're using? What is the intention of the meditation that you're doing, the work that you're doing? And it also applies to money. You have this resource. What is your intention? And the more crystal clear you can be about that, the more powerful it will be for you, is what I've been finding out.
In true alignment with your values. And it goes back to, remember grandma's bread or our parents cooking or our grandparents cooking, how the food tasted so much better. And they were my grandmother would knead the bread and think about love and feeding her family and how much she cared about her family. And the bread tasted different than when I try to duplicate it and I'm just following the recipe without intention.
It makes sense. It makes sense also, like, what I was thinking about when you were talking about the intention and that money needs an intention. And even I just had a realization of, like when you're paying cash for something or you're looking at handing them the money and thinking, go out and spread the love, instead of, oh my God, this costs, whatever amount, here, you're just doling it out. Instead, the intention that can infuse the money, just like you were saying, a crystal or whatever, that intention of it going out and creating and making joy for someone that actually makes you feel kind of happy when you're letting go of the money, is like oh, this money's going to go somewhere and make somebody happy when they touch it. So one of the things that I do, I put little hearts on my coins, little sticker
Hmm.
hearts on my coins. And when I give someone the change, that I'd say probably 99% of the time they notice it and they go, what's, oh my God, that's so cute. Did you put that on there? And I'm like, yeah, why did you do it? Because I wanted you to smile. You know, so it's kind of like that. And I hadn't really thought of it like that. Thank you.
Money, you're using money to bring happiness.
Right.
I have been taught, not taught, but it was brought to my attention one time of respecting money.
Yes.
And it's how you place it in your wallet. You know, if people just throw the money in their bag or whatever and run and toss it, it said they have no respect, whether it's change or, you know, dollar bills. And you can't have it like folded up and stick it in your pocket. You need to have it out and sequential order or whatever, however you like to do it. But it's treating money with the respect. And that's what I was taught a while ago.
Yeah, I stopped using credit cards at the very beginning of the year because I had made the declaration, and then someone gave me the book, Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. And in it, he talks about like leaving your credit cards and don't worry about like what you're not making on it. So I started going cash only. And what I found, and my intention to the money was, I want you to have more friends, and I want to have more friends in my wallet. And so I would spend the 20 and ask the 20 to go find more friends to come back to my wallet. And I was getting more and more 20s in my wallet. And they were just, and it was randomest things like checks coming from the weirdest places and I would go cash it and they would give me all 20s and there I'd have multiple 20s in my wallet. And so that was my intention, is I want my money to be able to play with more money and to have more playtime in my wallet.
Yeah, and to Annie's point, I mean, from Susie Arman to Dave Ramsey, and to a lot of other people that are gurus when it comes to finances, they talk about letting this flow of money, letting your money flow. You know, give it away, give it to friends, be generous, as opposed to being stagnant. Because when you're stagnant, it halts the flow of money and it doesn't grow. But when you give and you're generous with it, it comes back to you easily.
For the right reasons. Because if you're giving to fill your own ego, that is a low vibration exchange. And you will get back a low vibration exchange.
And do you feel too that the vibration has to be right on par with that flow of money, or else it's really not going to happen?
Give me an example.
Well, if you're, I guess, fearful or having a low vibration or stagnant and ego, then you're not going to get that money. Versus if you're at a higher vibration or matching up with it, then it's going to come to you more freely. So that's the way I look at it, from a vibrational sense of energy.
Think about lottery winners. We know that most lottery winners end up being more broke than they were before they won the lottery, because they didn't have the right intention when they won. They were coming from an already, let's say, a broken state of mind when they acquired the money, and their intention was never to respect money. They were wishing for lottery money because it was a disrespectful space of instant gratification. So now we're more into an addictive space of I want to win in instant gratification versus chugging along and happen to win lottery money. So the people who chug along and are focused on saving money and having investments and other things, when they win money, then they just amplify what they already had because they were already on a higher vibration space when that lottery win hit. But most people are in insufficient space, so they just amplify more insufficiency and disrespect. And now they have a much higher percentage disrespect and insufficiency at the end of that story.
I had an experience recently to buy that abundance program that I talked about earlier. And going back to how like a credit cards, there's that disconnect and that distance. I just found it very interesting because I was on a FaceTime call with her, and she was like, well, do you want to do this now? I'm like, I'll bless your credit card payment. I'll light the sage and have a little mini ceremony as the payment goes through. And so I just found that something that really resonated with me after learning this about credit cards, and still going back to the intention, or going back to giving it an intention. And it's, even though it may seem distant with credit cards, like I don't want to have that distant connection when it comes to credit card payments. And so, yeah, it was just something that I found that resonated with me, that I wanted to do for my clients too, because most of the transaction I do are through credit cards and with people who are not in Vegas or like in person. And so that was just something that I wanted to share, just blessing the credit card payment.
Yeah.
It seems that so many things start with awareness. For example, if you're you feel like your body is out of shape, the first thing is just to be aware. Keep moving through life, but be conscious of what's going on. Be conscious of what you're eating. Be conscious of your activity level. Just be conscious of your body. Start feeling your body. Be aware of it. And it seems that's a similar first step with money, because I feel that to me, a lot of the time, I'm unconscious of money. Things get, I've got a lot of things on auto payment. So I'm not conscious when bills are being paid. I look at the balance on my account, but I'm not really conscious of how that got there. And it seems like a first step would, what I'm hearing you saying is just slow down and be conscious of the flow of money in your life. So
Yeah, mindfulness is huge. And every time, so let's say someone's in debt and they're using their credit card to buy food, and they're justifying, like, food is a necessity. But if the rule is that every time they charge, they're getting deeper into this sense of enslavement, then now the food they just purchased with the credit card debt has now taken on that intention of resentment or anger or whatever that may be. And now we're eating the food that has the intention of resentment or anger or whatever that may be, versus when we pay in cash, we own it. There is no indebtedness anywhere. It's ours. We own it. There's a sense of ownership, and the food is ours. And then when we're eating things that, it changes when we start using cash over credit cards, or credit cards with mindfulness. It changes our world. Energetically, it's going to alter our environment. And when we do it respectfully, like I had an uncle who he would throw $20,000 at mistresses to buy apartments, but wouldn't give his kids money to like live. So it was just very disrespectful. And then at the end of his life, there's not a whole lot left because it wasn't respected to begin with.
Yeah, I noticed when I started first using cash, when we talked about money a couple months ago, there was more cash coming in, and I'm just like, how? But I mean, now I know how, because I'm putting an intention with cash. So yeah, it was just crazy to have the opportunities come, and you never know how they're going to come.
Yep.
Andy, it's funny what you said about your father, because my father was the same way. He always said, if you can't pay cash, you cannot afford it. And that's back in the day. And then credit cards came into existence, so that was like testing the waters. And then when you got, in debt per se, I remember getting in debt, but I went to bingo one night and I swore if I ever hit the bingo, I will pay off everything and it will never happen again. So lo and behold, I won a big night of bingo and I paid all that debt off. But of course, it, gradually comes back, but not as bad as it was. You're more aware, even owning the house, you get in debt. But, I got out of it and I'm very careful now on what I do and how I charge because I don't ever want to get there again.
Mhm.
But it's funny because that's, what we were taught. If you can't pay cash, you can't afford it.
Yeah. Well, my father had a hoarding problem, and he was, he always felt like he didn't have enough. So even though he paid cash for everything, he hoarded so much because he didn't want to lose anything, and so his money never flowed.
Well, he didn't hoard, but the funny part about my parents' relationship is that, my father said he never questioned my mother about anything. If she had, knew that it was going to be done. And I'll never forget when my mother had passed away and we went up to the credit union to close the account, they told my father, he says, oh, there's only $400 in the account. And they go, oh no, Mr. Morrissey, there was like, say, $2,000, but it was funny because that's how she was. Wasn't it, he always felt her money was her money and his money was their money, but it wasn't like she didn't, work with them both ways. But it was funny how they interacted, and it was funny how he didn't know really what went on with it.
What was going on?
It is funny.
And when we bring up our parents, that's how we learned about money, good, bad, or indifferent. That's the things that transcends with you as life goes on. And then when you hook up with, a partner or, and that could be a bit of an issue when you have two different, ideologies about money, of how you grew up versus the other person. So then it gets interesting.
Right, we go the pendulum, right? Like I went from hoarder that didn't want to spend. He had money, but he would wear shirts with holes in them because the worthiness wasn't like I can afford to go buy a new shirt. To the man that would spend more money than he had. So the pendulum had to swing and then come back into the middle.
I come from a family where, they were poor. My father was poor, but when he made money, he made more money. He spent money. He enjoyed himself. Okay. Then I have my husband that has depression parents from the great, and they just save everything. So it's like two ends of the spectrum, There you go.
So
Yeah.
Annie, how do you work with people in terms of money? Like you're presenting this webinar, and it's showing that you have some skill and insight in terms of money, and you're a coach. So do you work with people, and how do you do that?
Well, it comes down to values. What are their goals, and are those goals really generating? Will those goals bring them to a higher vibration? Are they going to be resonating in a more higher vibration? So if someone's like, I want to grow my company, I want to make $200,000 more than I'm making now. My question is why? What's the why? And if the why is truly to grow the company, to be a leader in the community, if there's a strong why, then it's very easy to work with. If it's a why based on ego or insecurity or something else, now we know where to work and to readjust that why. So even though money may be the focal point, it's not really the driver.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I feel like this is, in my thinking, a blank slate. And I focused on other areas of health, but not so much the financial area. And it's like it's a wide open area to pursue, and you've just given some initial thoughts and directions that we can go. I really appreciate that, Annie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So what I'd like to do now is quickly, let's just take a look at where we are in our series and what's coming up. So today was money is a reflection of our emotions. And I don't know if you guys, can you read this or do I need to make it larger? I
It's really
bet
small.
I can read it.
I can read it.
Okay. Well, there's a couple echelons larger. Okay. Neurofeedback in quantum energy. Dr. Denise Tropia, do you want to give us an idea? This is going to be June 3rd.
Yeah,
Do you want to
June
give us an idea of what you've got in
Well,
mind?
the title would probably be quantum energy and neurofeedback. They're actually two different modalities.
Okay.
I will be talking about the science behind quantum energy and how it can be applied to our overall health, and neurofeedback, how we can actually map the brain and talk about like neuroplasticity, help different the brain waves and how it impacts our overall health. So I'm really just going to drive both of those modalities to balancing our body and bring it back into homeostasis.
Exciting. Good. Looking forward to it, Denise. And then we've got the value and strategy of detox with Michelle. And do you want to give us an idea, Michelle, where you might be going with that?
Yeah, you and I had talked about me doing something on detox. I was wondering if maybe boosting immunity would be a more timely topic right now. I mean, detox is a piece of that. So I was thinking of maybe combining the immunity and the detoxing. So let me maybe think on how I can do that.
Yeah, I think
Exciting.
that would be a very
Good.
good pivot. Yeah, that sounds really good.
I spent the first few weeks of the quarantine developing an immune program, like a little mini course to teach people how to boost their immunity, all the different ways to do that. Detox is one of those ways. So I might just be able to focus on detox as a piece of the immune boosting protocols.
That'll be really timely, Michelle, because we'll be moving into a time where things are opening up. We're interacting with more people, exposing ourselves to more, and yet we don't have a vaccine until next year sometime, 2021. And so, yeah, very timely. Good.
Okay, I'll come up with a different title then maybe.
Okay, very good. And